In London, this is The Economist. Once or twice a month, we publish a special report which looks in depth at a particular topic or region. In the April the 21st edition, we've got a special report on the future of manufacturing called The Third Industrial Revolution. It's written by our innovation editor, Paul Markillie, who's with me now. Paul, why the third industrial revolution?
Well, the first industrial revolution was the mechanisation of the textile industries in Britain and the weavers' cottages giving way to the giant textile mills and factories emerging everywhere around the world. Second industrial revolution, Henry Ford and others mastering the moving production line and the age of mass production which is around us now. The third one, as I analyse it, is the digitisation of manufacturing.
And by going digital, what you're talking about is things like using 3D printers to make pieces from scratch, rather like you would print a 2D image. Is that right?
That is, in fact, just one of the things that's happening. The software that runs all sorts of manufacturing these days enables a 3D printer to work, and it makes a solid object by building up layers. But that same software can be used to produce a car in a digital prototype form that can be tested in a virtual environment, road tested, worked out how you might make that product. And also you're seeing robots too. They're becoming much more dexterous. They have vision now and sensor systems. They can produce and perform more tasks.
So you've got the old way of doing things that we've got used to, which is where you take a block of metal or a block of plastic or a block of something and chisel bits out of it to make the parts that you want and then stick the parts together to make a thing. This digital printing, this 3D printing, is where you take nothing. You start with nothing at all and you add bits until you do it in layers and you finally build up the thing that you wanted to build. What differences does it make?
Well, I think one of the best examples comes from the aerospace industry, the traditional subtractive way of manufacturing, which is what you were talking about there. You take a big block of, say, titanium, and you'd chisel, drill, hammer, cut away at it until you're left with a component. And you might end up by throwing away 90% or so of that material, and that's no longer good enough to be used in an aircraft. If you're using additive manufacturing, you would lay down precisely only the amount of material you need to make that part function.
And also, I guess that you can make it in smaller quantities. It's much easier to do smaller runs of things, which means there are all sorts of new products that can become economic.
Indeed, I mean, many of the things we already probably have come from 3D printers or additive manufacturing machines, even though we don't know that. Now, they may come directly, like the shells used in a hearing aid, which are customized, mass customization, or a digital prototype has been used by the 3D printer, which was its primary use, to produce, say, a model of a trainer that a shoe company would look at, approve, and then it'd go to traditional manufacturing to make the same thing. So there is actually an area in between where these 3D printers are both speeding up the development and introduction of new products, and in some cases, and increasingly, producing the products directly, but with economies of scale no longer mattering.
But there's another thing, of course, happening at the same time, which is a big change in relative productivity and competitiveness. We all know that wages in China, having been very low, are growing very quickly. America's productivity seems to be growing quicker than China's and quicker than other countries' productivity. And you've also got this rising worry about transport costs and the environmental effects of moving things all the way around the world. If you add all these together, it's quite a big change in the prospects for, in particular, American manufacturing. There's all this excitement, isn't there, about the reshoring of manufacturing from China, from the Far East, back to America. How quickly do you think that's going to happen? And is there an element of hype in this, or is it really going to be such a big sea change?
Well, it's happening already. I mean, I spoke to companies that have brought manufacturing back from China, but it's not just about wage costs. The labour component of some products now is really quite small. I mean, if you look at an Apple iPad, you know, it's $8 of manufacturing cost, labour costs in China, and that shows you where the rest of that money is going. No, the reason why China will remain good at some of this stuff is that well, for the iPad and for consumer electronics. It is an industrial cluster in its own right. It has great competence beyond just low wage costs, and those wage costs are rising. But on the other hand, the reasons why you may want to bring some manufacturing back to America could be because you want to be closer to your customer. You want to, the supply chain is very long. It can take months to get new designs out. So making something back in America means you can respond to the market quicker.
It's interesting that it's going to obviously change big manufacturing, as you say, but what really fascinates me in the special report is this social manufacturing, the idea that you can come up with an idea or just look out on social media for ideas for things that people need, just throw out a few ideas for a new product that might meet that need, see if people are interested, maybe get them to put down a deposit, send out some little prototypes that you've done on a 3D printer, and establish this entire market for a new product that perhaps done the conventional way by a big corporation doing conventional marketing research simply wouldn't have done.
The question I asked one of the people I spoke to was, what will the factory of the future look like? And his reply was, well, it could be me sitting at home in my home office, because these technologies, these digital technologies and the use of different manufacturing processes and the availability of a surprising number of things already online that look, a bit like Facebook, a bit like eBay. I mean, you could sit at home with nothing more than a laptop computer and take a product from conception to design to testing to prototyping to full manufacture almost anywhere in the world, and distribution and sales. And that's just you in your office. And to that extent, we do indeed see the wheel of manufacturing turn back almost to those weavers' cottages of the very first industrial revolution.
Indeed. One final thought, just to look at the limits, the horizon of what we could do with digital manufacturing. You talk in the special report about the possibility of making medicines, and obviously because of the nature of 3D manufacturing, you can make very small quantities of things. We could get closer to the great dream of personalised medicine that medical researchers have been talking to. I understand that they're also even beginning to try things like printing blood vessels, in other words, soft body parts, as well as printing hip replacement parts and so on. I suppose you could, in the end, imagine them printing whole replacement organs, especially if they somehow brought in stem cell technology to help them generate your replacement kidney. If you needed a new kidney, you wouldn't need donors anymore. It would be grown for you from your own DNA, so to speak. And I guess in an intermediate step that occurs to me is, imagine if we could actually use 3D manufacturing to make a fillet steak.
Oh, the killer app in that one will be chocolate, printing chocolate.
Absolutely. I'd have to have a chocolate printer.
Yeah.
Never mind going to the shop to pick up your pre-printed chocolate. I would have one in the bedroom, I think.
You could indeed print your own chocolate bars.
That would be marvellous. Thanks very much, Paul. Paul Markillie's special report on the future of manufacturing will be published in the April the 21st edition of The Economist. In London, this is The Economist.